Okay, welcome to today's episode of the From the Hart podcast presented by the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses. I put a post on LinkedIn a few days ago about this podcast. I'm always excited when I get to interview a guest and I start thinking about and preparing for the episode, doing some research, talking to the person I'm going to be talking with in preparation for the episode. I'd use the word giddy when I talk about this episode today. The gentleman that you see, if you're watching and you're hearing that laugh already, if you're just getting a chance to listen today, that I'm going to be talking with today, Bart Robley. Bart and I are neighbors. We actually live on the same street here in Ontario, California. What that means is a couple of things. Number one, we have good choice when it comes to where we choose to live. And number two, we're old. We live in a 55 and over community in Ontario, California.
I don't like the looks of those teenagers.
Yeah, right. Get those teenagers and kids off my lawn.
Off my lawn.
My lawn, exactly. So Bart and I and his wife Leah and my wife Lorianne, we're four really good friends. Our wives spend a lot of time together. They both love butterflies and nature, so they share that. Bart and I could sit and talk music and travel and everything all day long. And so I thought, why not get this gentleman who I just adore on the podcast. Bart, really great to see you today, buddy. For those that are listening, unfortunately, if you watch this on YouTube, you get to see some of the cool stuff that I'm seeing, but he's sitting at his drum set in his studio, in his home, about 100 yards to the west of me, down via Corazon, Privado, where we live. But Bart, how you doing this morning, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that introduction. Open your window. Tell me if you can. Can you hear that?
It's just about, right? If I open it wouldn't be the first time I hear it, that's for sure.
Oh, this is great. Thank you for that kind introduction. This is so cool, man. This is really nice to be on here. I was really flattered when you asked me because, as you know, I mean, I have a podcast too,
Right.
and it deals with music and drumming. And you and I had talked and shared a few war stories, if you will,
There you
in
go.
regards to our podcasts and whatnot, and how we go about doing them. And when you said, "Hey, I want to have you on the podcast," I was like, "That's great." And I mean, I would love to have you on our podcast if you want to. If you
Well,
know,
I have a drumstick. Does
you
that
have
mean
a
that I qualify?
drumstick.
I have a
That's it.
stick. Yeah.
That's it.
I have a stick and a pen. I think I can.
You have That's all you need, man.
That's right. You don't
But
need
yeah,
to-
this is great. Thanks so much for having me on. This is fantastic, and I think this will be a way for me to maybe spread the word a little bit with people who are not necessarily drummers, but maybe they want to learn to play a musical instrument, about how rhythm works in our lives in general, and yeah. So thank you. This is great.
Well, it's my pleasure. And as I talked about with you in the past, Bart and I also run into each other. I say we work out regularly, but he works
Yeah.
out regularly. I run into him there every now and then when I'm at the gym. But we actually did some of the preparation for this conversation last week when we were at the gym. I was on the bike and he was on the elliptical right next to me, and we talked through our 1 hour workouts together and did some preparation. But yeah, this podcast came, not just today's episode, but the show, the From the Heart podcast, in conversations with a lot of different people in the family business arena. I've actually talked with a couple other musicians throughout this. A gentleman by the name of Greg Grunberg, who's an actor who also was a drummer in a couple different bands, mostly celebrity-based bands. So I have an appreciation for music, but no musical talent. But what I do love about music is, just like everything, it crosses over into so many different genres and categories. And one of the things Bart and I talked about coming out of the gym the other day was, how does drumming and music tie into leadership? And so we will get into that a little bit. Just a little bit about Bart. Grew up in Littleton, Colorado. So he's grown up in the cold weather. So when we were just joking before we hit record that if it gets down below 60 or 50 here in Southern California, that's in his element. But for me, I roll up and I'm ready to put a fire in the fireplace and get some hot chocolate, and I'll go outside when it's 70 again. He's not just a drummer and a talented musician, which we'll get into today, and you'll get to hear some of his talent as well. He's an author. He's written a couple of books, working on another book. We'll talk about those today as well. He is an educator, among other things. He teaches drumming, and he does a lot of it online. And one of his students is my 13-year-old grandson, Makua, he's
Yep.
been teaching now for several months. So we're eager to, hear a little bit how that happened. But I guess what I'll just start with, Bart, and I never know where I'm going to start on these conversations until I start the conversation.
Perfect.
how have the events of the last 4 years, or almost 5 years now with COVID, and obviously, everything, how much online stuff did you do before that? And I know, like, other than your gigs, probably 90% or more of what you're doing is, sitting at that drum kit where you are right now. Talk a little bit about how your career has transitioned over the last 4 or 5 years.
It a lot of people, COVID like destroyed careers, it destroyed industries and shut a lot of stuff down. And I was already teaching online.
Cool.
I had been studying with a gentleman by the name of Dom Fimulero. Dom was considered the global ambassador to drumming. He was just this gigantic ball of positive energy, and he was on the East Coast. And he was in Connecticut, and I studied with him online, and that kind of in turn made me realize that I could study online or teach online. So I was teaching on Skype, really.
Yeah.
And what I was doing was, whenever somebody would hear about me or the band would be on the road and somebody would want to take lessons, I'd see the band and they'd be, well, I'm a drummer. I'd love to take a few lessons, but I don't live close. He'd be, well, I teach on Skype, right? And it was much more archaic than it is now. I showed you the cameras. I can switch those in a minute so people watch it on YouTube can see it. But it was just literally like my laptop, and I'd play something and they'd play. And when COVID happened, it was just this, okay, all of my students still wanted to take lessons and they didn't necessarily want to stop. And their parents were like, well, they got to do something. So yeah, let's do it online. So everything moved over to Skype, and then I was new to Zoom at that time because
Right.
everything I'd done was with Skype. So I said, okay, whatever you want to do, Skype or Zoom, I don't care which. So we switched over, and then to online lessons, and it went great. Didn't lose one single student. Well, then I started realizing that there was a lot of really positive things about teaching on Skype. First of all, from a drummer's perspective, I would see how my students had their drum sets set up.
Hmm.
If you're taking guitar lessons, let's say, right? First thing you do in a guitar lesson is you tune the guitar. But when you're taking drum lessons, I'm taking a bit of a sidestep here.
Sure.
But when you take drum lessons, you come into the studio. There's one or two drum sets. You set it up for your height. The student will set it up for their height, and away we go. It's usually padded up, meaning that, like, instead of, like, here's a tom, they'll have a pad on it, right? Because you're usually in a music school or something, and it's not going to be, you don't want to bug your neighbors.
Wake
So
up the neighbors. Yeah.
yeah, right. So you put pads on everything. And so there a lot of drum tuning, I mean, it's talked about, but it's not a focus of the lesson, right? The focus is more about how to play the instrument. So anyway, we get online and I realize right away, whoa, my gosh, my students are not set up at all ergonomically. The drum sets are really haphazardly set up and they're not tuned very well. So we were able to fix that. And actually, how you set up the drum set is very important to the success of you being able to play a part, right? You don't want to be reaching for things. It's a very physical instrument.
Yeah.
So, that was a real positive. And then, people start referring you, and so I would get students from all over the place that normally wouldn't come to me, right? So right now, I teach students all over the United States. I also belong to all the companies that I play for. I'm very proud to say that I'm endorsed by them. Gretsch Drums, Sabian Cymbals, big long list of people. Sabian Cymbals, Dom Fimulero, who we did lose him last year, and so he was such a big deal in the industry as far as drumming was concerned. He and a guy by the name of Joe Bergamini started a thing with Sabian called the Sabian Education Network. And we all became, and so if you're a Sabian endorser and you teach, you're part of that network. And through that, through SIN, there's this global outreach of people who, hey, I want to learn how to play. Who can I pick from? And so you go to the Sabian website and you see all the teachers and, oh, I want to stay with this guy. Well, I live in France, the student might live in France and I live in Ontario, so they can get online and take a
Right.
lesson with you. So I mean, in a nutshell, I can go on for hours about it. It's worked out really good. So
Yeah.
that changed. Um, this room that you're seeing when we moved into the house, we built this room in what was called the flex room, and it's actually a recording studio. We double walled it. You can kind of see here it's double walled,
Yeah.
and so it's not super loud in here, and it sounds great. Sounds really good in here. I've done about 4 albums in here. I also do some voiceover work in here. There's you can't see them from here, but there's microphones right above me to pick up the overheads. They're called overheads to pick up the cymbals. There's a room mic, and the room is so dead that it sounds really good in here. So I do some voiceover work. I have other clients come in sometimes, and we can do voiceover work in here with them if they so choose to do so. So
You got
it's a
quite the
it's a
setup
working
there.
recording studio.
Yeah. I just have an office that I use as an office. And when I do a podcast, I close the windows and close the door and put a sign on the door recording. And haven't
Yeah,
gotten to
but
the point
it
where you are,
sounds
but
great, man. It
it
sounds
works out
really
pretty
good.
well. But yeah, the sound has worked out well. I've got a lot to learn. I've seen your studio. I've been in there once, and it's definitely very, very impressive. So, all right, lots of places we can go with this, and we're going to jump all over the place a little bit, but most of our listeners are leaders of organizations. They maybe run a family business or privately held company. They work in corporate America. Drumming is, in the people that I've talked to over the years and people I've talked to recently in the coming last few weeks about getting the chance to talk with you, say the same thing. Oh man, drummers and drums are so cool. You think about being in the band and thinking about, just the drum beat. Talk about how drumming. I want to go back in a little bit into your childhood and how it all started, your first
Mhm.
paid gig, aha moments, experiences, and so forth. But for those that are in a leadership role in organizations, and we talked about this walking out of the gym the other day, so this question's coming. Can you talk a little bit about what role drums play in the band? Why is it so important? And how would you liken that to, maybe in an organization, in a leadership role in a company?
Perfect, perfect. Great, great, great question. So when you're playing a drum groove, right? So like if I play just a drum groove, okay? So if I play something like, all right, play something like that, and you play it and you hold it together for however long. Say the length of a song is 3 minutes, okay, 3.5 minutes. You play that for 3 minutes, and that was kind of like a rock type of thing, and you play it steady for 3 minutes. You don't speed up, you don't slow down. You're creating what's called a pocket.
Okay.
Now, what does a pocket do, right? I stand up here, can't see my head anymore if you're on YouTube, and I hold something. I got chapstick in my pocket. It holds something. So the pocket for a band is so incredibly important because I'm the guy that's holding the song together. The
Hmm.
guitar player, the drums and the bass player, they pave the road, right? The guitar players are free to solo. The piano player is free to solo. The singers, if it's if it's like a rock type of thing or a pop thing where you have a singer, they can take it wherever they want it. They know that if you have a good solid drummer, they're going to hold the band together. They're going to create that pocket, and they're free to do their job within the band. My job is to hold it together and to help tell the story. And far be it from me to want to step on the story. I want to hold that pocket together
Hmm.
so that the singer who is the one telling the story can tell the story, and then the guitar player can elaborate on that story with a guitar solo, and then maybe if there's a horn player or a piano player, they can elaborate with their solos. um, Buddy Rich used to say that if you had a great band with a mediocre drummer, you've got a terrible band.
Hmm.
But if you have a mediocre band with a great drummer, you have a fantastic band. The
Wow.
drummer lifts the band. The drummer takes the band to a different level, and when you have a drummer that sits down and just lays it down, man, you know, it's golden.
Wow, I love that. So let's take that a step further. How do you
Yeah.
tie that I think a lot of people are already drawing the analogies for themselves just by hearing
Mhm.
you say that. But
Right.
for those less who aren't as seeing the obvious there, like me, I can be dense sometimes. Take that analogy into an organization. I know we talked a little bit the other day about how, you and I want to start looking at maybe doing some work together. I've got some ideas, you've got some ideas where we can tie what you do and the music around you into some of the companies that I work with. How could we take, let's brainstorm that for a minute. How could we take what you just talked about into an organization? Let's say there's 100 people, they've got the family runs the business, they've got non-family leaders who lead in the company as well. How would you tie that analogy into the drummer keeping the band together, into how that can work in an organization?
I think leadership is everything, right? Leadership is everything. In our podcast, my podcast, Drummers Education Connection, we did a show called Leadership is Everything. And I think that in the role of a leader, if you're a family business and you have somebody that is your manager, your CEO, whatever they're doing for your organization, that leadership that they carry with them is everything. And as a leader, I think not only do you have to be motivating and inspirational to the people who work for you, but you also have to show them the determination that it takes to go to whatever the next level of whatever it is you're trying to do is. And they have to see your vision. And sometimes they don't see that vision, right? The people that work with you, they may or may not see that vision. And so you, as a drummer, as a place of being a drummer, I think that you have to be motivational, you have to be inspirational, and you have to show the determination, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is also something that I teach through drumming. I teach people all the time how to play a drum groove. That I hear it all the time. How do I could never play the drums. I don't have any rhythm. Well, we all have rhythm. Everybody has rhythm. If you go like this and you put your hand over your chest and you don't feel a rhythm, you've got a problem.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you're probably not able to do that because you're not here. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you have to have you have to learn how to harness that rhythm, right? You have to learn how to harness that. Well, if you're a CEO or you're a manager of a company and somebody that you're working with isn't necessarily a bad employee or anything like that, they just don't see your vision. Sometimes you have to learn how to harness what it is that and use their strengths to better your organization. And I think a good drummer can do that. I teach people all the time, let's do this.
He's breaking out the drumsticks a lot. And I'm hoping that those of you who are listening and watching are as fascinated by this as I am. I could just say, Bart, could you drum for me for 45 minutes? We'll record it and call it a day. Because I dig that.
What?
Totally dig it.
Jesse over here.
Yeah, your neighbor down the street.
They're having a party and she's like, we want you to play. And I was like, well, I'd love to have the band play, and I know they would do it, but there's so many logistics and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. She goes, no, we don't want the band. We just want you to play. And I'm like,
nice.
Well, 5 minutes of drumming would be cool, but after 5 minutes, everybody's going to be shut
up. Man. I just set up all the kit and everything for 5 minutes of drumming too.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. Now, okay, well, before I do this, so I think that as a manager of a company or a leader in a company, you also have to be willing to learn new things. Just because you're the one that's spearheading something doesn't mean that you're not trying to learn and to be a better you. That's one of the things I tell all my drum students. I want you to be the best you that you can be. I don't play the drums like John Bonham. He was one of my favorite drummers. I don't play like him. I can do some John Bonham stuff, but when I sit down to play, I'm going to give you the best Bart Robley I can.
Cool.
Right. So here's what I want to do. Here's what I want you to do.
All right.
I want you to take your right hand. I want to put both hands on your desk.
Okay.
Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to play 8 notes with your right hand, but I want you to count them like this. I want you to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and just count to 4 and then start over again with your right hand. Go for it.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Perfect. Now, okay. Now on 2 and 4, I want your hands to work together.
Okay.
Okay. And what I want, and this was
This
a
is where
big
I've been scared to play music because that's like, how does somebody
no.
play the guitar and sing? How does somebody play the drum? Okay, go ahead.
So here's what you're going to do. So
Yeah.
on 2 and 4, this was an epiphany to me at King Carl Junior High in the 7th grade. Oh, my body's working together. On 2 and 4, I want you to go 2, 4, like that, both hands. So I want
Okay.
1 and 2
2
and
and
3
3
and
and
4
4
and
and
1.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All right.
Perfect, perfect,
Look at
perfect,
that. I just
perfect.
play. Look at that, folks.
Now,
You got a prodigy here, a
what you
60-year-old
just
prodigy.
did, okay? You just played dug-a-dunk, dug-a-dunk, ba-diddle-doo, dunk, dug-a-dunk, dug-a-dunk, dunk-on, right?
Nice.
Back in black. That's also that's part of it. There's a bass drum in there. We can do that further if you wanted to. We can go on and on and on. That's also the groove to Inner Sandman by Metallica. It is the groove to Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. And I can sit here all day and give you songs that will work in. And so in some of my classes where it's a motivational thing, I'll take somebody that's never played a musical instrument. I'll go, okay, come here. I'll put them in the hot seat. And within 2 minutes, I'll have them playing. Literally, they'll be sitting here going, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're able to play along with the song. I think a good leader would want to learn how to do something that fast, how to explain it that fast, and how to be motivational that fast. And trust me, when it's really easy when I'm around this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm around musicians all the time. And I don't want to say I take it for granted, but you kind of take it for granted after a while. You don't think about it. But when somebody sits behind the drum set for the first time and they weren't expecting to do it, and it's extremely powerful, right?
Yeah.
When you hit these things, it's, and this particular drum set, I mean, this is a Lamborghini, this is a top fuel dragster, So when somebody sits down and plays this thing, they're like, wow, listen to that sound, and you feel it. Like when you hit a drum, it creates air, right? It moves air. And so, wow, you feel it, right? So when somebody sits down and does that, and they weren't even expecting to, so you're in a motivational or inspirational thing, a meeting or what have you, and somebody gets up and plays the drums, and they're like, oh my God, I can do this. Well, if you're in a leadership role at a business and you take somebody that they don't think they can do this, there's no way I can do that job, but you inspire them and you motivate them to do something that they didn't think they can do, and they do it and they have success at it, don't you think that person is now going to be a better employee? Don't you think that person is going to be an asset to your company?
Yeah, I love that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about when I was 15 and I took driving lessons for the first time. I didn't learn to drive by sitting in the passenger seat. They put me behind the wheel. When I was 18, I was fortunate enough to start taking flying lessons. I never finished and got my license, but I started at 18. And literally the first lesson, there was this power of sitting in the pilot's seat. Yeah, the teacher, the instructor is in the co-pilot seat and he's flying the plane, but you have this feeling. I've been in homes and other places where I see a drum set and I sit down at that stool and I get behind the drum and it's a similar feeling of power, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. We all think we do. I'll sit in church or I'll be on my car hitting the dashboard on the 2-4 thing like you and I just did. And I'm feeling like, man, I could do this. But I know I can't, obviously, but there is that power. And I think that happens in organizations too, where we put our people in a position of authority and leadership and responsibility, sometimes before they're ready. That happens a lot. But oftentimes we won't know how good they're going to be until we put them at the drum set and get them going. You probably have students that you've taught that 10 minutes in, this is going to be a big challenge. And other times 2 minutes in, man, this guy's got it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I talk about that. And how do you know seconds or minutes in if someone really has it?
You can tell pretty much right away. Like if somebody sits down and they're grasping it mathematically, right? Because really when you're playing music, you're dealing with, and especially when you're talking rhythm, you are dealing with dividing spaces of time, right? You're dealing with little pieces of time. And mastering that is a lifetime's worth of work. But sometimes just understanding, okay, I'm like you just did, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and having the ability to, okay, this is 8 little pieces of time, and I'm dividing them up, and I'm doing something, simultaneously at the same time with 2 limbs, simultaneously at the same time with 3 limbs, now with 4 limbs. You can see it right away, usually within the first lesson. And then also when you said somebody there's challenges sometimes. Sometimes people they'll have a challenge with it, and they just can't do it right away. And that's okay too, because again, what I said a second ago, we all have rhythm. We have to learn, you have to learn to harness that rhythm, and you have to learn to harness your strengths as well, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that when you're dealing with somebody that has a challenge, it does take patience, but at the same time, you can nurture that patience, right? Like I have some students that, for instance, if there's a learning disorder and they have a hard time with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, well, okay, in that case, well, okay, ice cream cupcake, right? There's different
Take your
ways,
mind into it a different way.
totally, completely different ways to do it. Well, I think that mindset as a leader in a business, if somebody doesn't understand we're trying to get from A to D, and there's some obstacles in the way here. There's a lot of different ways around those obstacles, and I think a good leader can find those ways around the obstacle for the person they're trying to show how to get there. So yeah, the dealing with challenges is something that happens all the time in teaching, and also just being in a band, right? Being in a band itself. I mean, I've been in the same band for 25 years. We're on the road all the time, and man, talk about obstacles, and talk about, I mean, you get 5 guys, and there's a Wendy's restaurant across the street, and we all want to go to Wendy's. You're going to get 5 different ways of how to get there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just is.
Or if there's
So,
5 different restaurants, now there's 5 different options of where you want to go.
totally, And so, and there's nothing wrong with that, but when it comes showtime, when it comes time to, okay, we've got to get from Tucson to Corpus Christi. And how are we going to do that? Who's going to drive? Who's going to be in charge of that? Something happened with the trailer. Who's going to be in charge? Again, leadership is everything. You have to have that mentality in a band as well.
Man, just when I think there's the next question I'm going to ask is so obvious, then you say something and it takes me somewhere else. I'm writing some things down I want to make sure I get back to. All right, I want to ask
going
you,
blah blah blah.
no,
blah,
dude,
blah,
this
blah,
is
blah.
awesome, and I know that our listeners are loving this as well. I know many in my audience. I don't know everybody, obviously, but many who listen regularly are loving this. One of the things that comes up for me when I think about leadership and I think about your role as a drummer and in music in general is the word adaptability. And I think the ability to adapt to situations and to people. We talked the other day when we were coming out of the gym again about jazz, and a buddy of mine, Dave Logan, who wrote Tribal Leadership, one of the greatest New York Times best-selling books on leadership, how he does a program called the Jazz of Leadership. And I've led programs with him, and he's done it, but it's been a client of mine where we've gone in and he's talked about jazz music and how musicians, these 5 musicians, to use your number, can come in and not know each other, and in 5 minutes they're making music that's unbelievable. That adaptability that has to happen in an organization. So I'm going to ask you and have you demonstrate on your drum set there. I apologize if I'm using the wrong words: drum set, drum kit, whatever. You know what to say. I call it what I see. If you were sitting down,
things that make,
there you go. Yeah, what are those things we bang on that make sounds and have air coming out of them that feel so good, like you talked about? So you're about to sit down for 30 seconds and audition for AC/DC.
Okay.
Show us what you would do. And
Okay,
then
if I was going to for AC/DC,
yeah,
well, okay, AC/DC, arguably one of the greatest rock bands ever,
right. That's why I used it.
with one of the greatest albums ever,
Back in Black.
with yeah, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
right? If you haven't heard Back in Black, with the greatest song ever, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right? So yeah, so that's what I'm going to play. So I get the song in my hand.
Awesome.
And incidentally,
it's so funny because I know the song.
What's that?
I know the song so well that I'm watching and hearing you, but I'm hearing the tune of the music in my head.
Well, that's the idea. That's
right,
the idea,
awesome.
right? So okay, look. I had a friend of mine tell me a story one time that he was hiring a guy to do a job at a one of the cities, okay? And what they did was he said there was a test that they gave these people, right? And the test was, you go through, when you get down to this point of where they're going to hire you if you pass this test. The test was really easy. It was kind of a maintenance job. And they said, okay, what we want you to do is there's a pile of sand and there's a wheelbarrow and a shovel. We want you to take the wheelbarrow and the shovel, and we want you to go over to the pile of sand, and we want you to put 2 scoops of sand into the wheelbarrow, and then you want you to take the wheelbarrow back to where it was and dump the sand on the ground and put the shovel back in the wheelbarrow. Or inevitably, people would read that, and they would take the wheelbarrow and they would fill it up with sand. And then they would take it back over, and they'd dump this giant wheelbarrow full of sand out on the ground, right? And those people didn't get hired. They were trying to impress somebody with
I can do what you asked and more. Well, I didn't ask you to do.
We didn't ask you to do that. We asked you to do this. So if I'm auditioning for AC/DC, that's what I'm going to play.
Yeah.
If I get a call to do a jazz thing,
Right.
Wow. We'll play that.
Yep.
Even though I messed up. Take 5, right?
So, I didn't. That's so funny. You're the duck. It's the duck on the water. All I see is you're playing. I had no idea you messed up.
And so yeah, you're gonna play something like that. You're gonna play something like that.
Frank Sinatra.
Oh, Frank Sinatra. All right, just something real jazzy, feather the bass drum, barely play it.
All right, I got 2 more.
Okay.
Jason Aldean. We talked about this the other day that you got a buddy that plays for him. So what?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to play something. Well, you kind of with Jason Aldean, you're going to kind of play kind of an AC/DC rock thing, right? You're gonna because that's a rock.
I go a little more country. So
okay,
go Brooks. So, yeah.
What I might do is I might play something like just a shuffle, right? Because you're going to want to show that you can shuffle, right? A halftime shuffle. One of the greatest halftime shuffles of all time. All right. So a shuffle, show that you can shuffle, show some diversity, right? And so, yeah, I'm going to do something like that.
Can I give you one more?
Sure.
You mentioned it a little bit already with halftime. Let's go to the USC Trojan Marching Band.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. Nice. There you
go. So my point in bringing all of that up, for my sake, I'm going to state the obvious for me. Maybe somebody else is getting it at the same time. Goes back to that adaptability. And in an organization, no two organizations are alike. So you may have been a CFO for a company for 25 years, and now you're coming into a new company to be the CFO. Yeah, there are similarities, obviously, and what you do is what you do, but we still need to adapt to the company where we're working, the leader that we work with, the people that we oversee, the customers that we serve. And I get that for you, that adaptability at the drums is very similar. That
Well,
you,
yeah,
you
and
read the audience. I mean, you probably are 5 minutes into a concert and you see the audience and you know what they're responding to. It might not be what you thought they were going to.
right.
How do you adapt in that situation when the audience isn't what you thought it was?
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes, well, a couple things can happen, I mean, sometimes you're like one night the audience is just bombastic, and the very next night, the very same show, and even sometimes the same venue, like
Yeah.
if you get a residency, and the audience just isn't as lively. Well, then at that point, you just have to kind of dig deep,
Hmm.
and you got to pull it out of yourself and play for the music and not let the audience bother you. You also need to do one of the things like right there. I didn't know what you were going to throw at me, right? What am I going to
Yeah.
play? And so like I'm pulling stuff out of the top of my head, and from a drummer's perspective, did I play it perfectly? Probably not. However, it's the not only the ability, but I think the playing it with purpose, right? Play it with purpose. Hey, look, I may not play this part perfect, but I'm going to play it. I'm just going to do it. And if I sink or swim, at least I'm giving it a shot, right? So I think that is, maybe it doesn't answer your specific question, but I think it kind of goes to the point of at least you're giving it a shot. The audience may
Yeah.
not have expected to, they expected something different than what you were. I'll give you a perfect example. One time, I got we got hired this band to play. Sometimes you get hired to play a gig where they shouldn't even have a band. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's happened. And we were playing the grand opening of this art gallery.
Okay.
Okay. And the theme, well, it wasn't the art gallery, it was the grand opening of an art exhibit at an art gallery.
Okay.
And the theme was Americana. So they wanted real, they wanted some of that shuffle stuff I was playing. They wanted Sweet Home Alabama. They wanted Americana
With the
music.
old rock that we just,
Yeah. So that's what we did. So anyway, we go into sound check, and this is a little tiny little place, and they go, okay, you guys are gonna have to be quiet. We're like, yeah, we're gonna have to be really quiet.
right.
So we literally, so in this case, these guys right here, these are called hot rods. Okay, and what hot rods are? There's a stick. There's a hot rod.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Bunch of little dowels, right? So a minute ago, I played AC/DC, right? Okay, so we're gonna play. We'll play quieter. I'll use my hot rod. Guy comes flying around the corner. Shut up, you guys! You're too loud.
Wow. You're like, wait, you want quieter than that?
Okay,
Quieter than that is I'm not here.
well, so then, like, okay, I know what I'll do.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
you said, okay, hey, adaptability, right?
You've got all these different drum sticks.
You said Frank Sinatra,
There you go.
right? So
Fly
you got
me
some
to the
brush stuff. Yeah, fly me to the moon, right?
Yeah.
So now,
I'm hearing that already.
okay, but now we're gonna play. Okay, we got to play this rock thing, but we got to play it that quiet. So,
Hmm.
right, and that was okay for them, but they were still telling us to be quiet.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, it is about the adaptability to the gig sometimes, right? So, and that particular audience, they were coming in to look at art, and here's this band in the middle of the art playing.
Yeah. You're the background music. You're not the man.
Whose genius idea it was to
Yeah.
hire a band, but they did. And so so we we did our job, and that's what we did. But yeah, and I mean, you've seen the movie Spinal Tap.
Yeah. Years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason that movie is so funny to musicians, a lot of people watch that movie and they're like, what? They don't get it. It's a big spoof. But if you're a musician and you've been in a band for more than a month, you've lived every scene in that movie.
Yeah, it's your autobiography is what you're watching.
Oh my God, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and so some of those things we always call them spinal tap moments. Okay, well, we got to live through this spinal tap
Yeah.
moment, and and then there's a lot of times where, well, I wish Spinal Tap wishes they would have thought of that one.
Yeah,
But here's
right.
the key, right? Well, here's the key to it. I mean, it's funny and it gives you a story and everything like that. But back to what you're asking about your role as a leader in a business. I have learned more from those gigs. I've learned more from those gigs than I ever learned from the big rock star moments,
Hmm.
right? The
Yeah,
big rock star moments, you're like pounding your chest and look, this is awesome.
right.
But the ones where the gig didn't go well, the one where, man, we just we
Didn't
didn't
have it
pull it
tonight.
off tonight. Yeah,
Yeah.
you learn from those.
Yeah.
And I think business, because you got to realize a lot of times, I'm equating these things to a banking business or a small business that might
Sure.
be watching, right? Because that's what your podcast gears itself to. Remember, I'm in the music business. Now I'm
Yeah.
really lucky because at the top of the podcast, you asked me, you kind of gave my resume. I'm a drummer in a band, okay, and I
Hmm.
tour a lot. I teach. I have a lot of students, and mentoring people and mentoring students is so important to me. I'm a clinician, motivational speaker at clinics, um, an author. I do wear these different hats within the music business to make a living at it, right? So, like any business, sometimes you're going to have failures. And within
Yeah.
those failures, you learn from them and you readjust, to your due north, whatever that is. You get knocked off course a little bit, you come back over here, right?
Can you, and I'm assuming the answer to this is yes. So if you're having one of those nights, you're doing a concert, you're out in Timbuktu, wherever, you're on stage, and in your role as the drummer, can you rescue a show? And I don't want you to say, oh yeah, I'm Bart Robley, of course I can, but can the drummer have more of an impact on rescuing a show than maybe another member of the band? And again, not to make it personal and not to elevate or escalate, what have you, but I feel like you do have that ability, all things being the same. The audience is good, but there's just something off tonight. What can you do as the drummer to kind of pull it back?
I think that never, rhythm is always moving forward. Time is always moving forward. And when you're dealing with a band, you're dealing with, however many people there are within that band, 4, 5, 6 people, whatever. And there are so many things that can go wrong when you walk on stage, right?
Yeah.
And like literally one little thing, like literally, like, oh, I lost that. The show's done. I mean, there's
Yeah.
literally a million little things that can go wrong. And I think that you have to keep your mind in the game. You have to stay focused on the game, and you have to, as a drummer, I think you're going to lift the band, and the band's going to go where I take them, right?
Hmm.
And what I mean by that, and any drummer will tell you that. Again,
Right.
this isn't
And
a
any
Bart
band
Robley.
member who's not a drummer will tell you that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I often say this, the the singer, the band leader, whatever, they're up front and they're talking, and in between songs, they're telling the story, and we're getting ready to go into the next song, right? So whatever that song is, okay, he's telling his story, but I'm hearing the song in my head. And then, okay, we're getting close to where he's going to say the name of the song. So I start doing this. Now, the reason I do that is because right now on the internet, you're down the street, but you
Yeah.
hear that pulse and you feel that pulse. So the rest of the band feels it. 1, 2, 3, 4. right? And I bring in the song, whatever the song may
Yeah.
be. Okay. And if the singer or the person telling the story is having a bad night, or they have things aren't going well for them, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm okay, guys. Everybody be ready. Here's your tempo. Here's where we're coming in. Let's pull this together. And then the second that he says the name of the song, if you liken it to a sports team, he hands me the ball and now it's mine.
Yeah.
I got you. And away we go. And I think that in a role of leadership, I think that when you're on the stage, that's when you know I kind of shine right there. Okay, I got the song here. Now I'm realizing that not just that person was having a hard time, and I'm in my mind I'm hearing a bad monitor mix, and that's where I'm running with this
Okay.
story. Um, so now this person over here is having a hard time. They can't, they're, whatever is going wrong with them, they're having a hard time. Maybe they need a little bit more kick drum so that they can stay in time. Or this person over here is really out of time. They're really having a hard time. So maybe they need more hi-hat. It's like herding mice sometimes. Now I'm in a really fortunate position because the band that I play with, the Sam Morrison Band, I've been in that band for 25 years. So I
Yeah.
know the book. The guys in the band know the book. We're at a point where everybody in the band is in a really good place, meaning all the musicians are great. There's not any explosions going on in anybody's lives. Everybody's on the same page. And so the band is great, right? I mean, I count to four and boom, we go. But there are the exceptions to that rule where you're just kind of, well, come on, guys, let's hold it together.
Have there been these aha moments? Can you describe a couple of incidents where you had an aha moment of the role and the importance of what you're doing? Whether it's, I'm sure you have off nights where you're just going
Oh,
through the
yeah.
motions and playing, and the 2 hours are up and you collect the paycheck and you get back on the bus and you go home. But those moments where you're like, dude, I can't believe I'm doing this for a living and I get to do this. I mean, I have those days in this job. I've had I used to be a GM of a minor league baseball team. I've been in different jobs where I'd be like just walking around the stadium or in a meeting with a client. I go, I can't believe I get to do this for a living, or a podcast. I can't believe I get to do this and people actually listen to this.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about with you? I mean, those aha moments where you just thought, man, I can't believe I get to do this.
I'm going to give you two extremes here, and I'll give you three extremes because all three of these are extremely important to me. And I tell all of my students this when they start taking lessons with me. I play in a touring band. I teach. I write books. I do albums. I have a podcast. I have all these things that I do. I don't put one above the other.
Yeah.
If I'm playing a stadium and there's a few thousand people watching me play, or I'm teaching quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, to an 8-year-old, both of those things have the same amount of reverence to me. I don't sit there and go, oh, let's just play the quarter notes, kid. I got to go on play my gig.
Yeah.
That is so far outside of my realm of thinking. Everything to me is of equal importance. So the first aha moment, I think, for me was years ago as a teacher. I was I I was like a lot of people that start teaching a musical instrument. Like, hey, I got to make a buck at this, and I don't play a ton of gigs. I'm going to give some lessons, right? And so you give some lessons. But the important thing was about, I don't know, a month into teaching, I had this kid come back that I had, and I was a kid. I mean, I was a teenager, but I had this little kid come back into this music store I was working at. And he's like, Bart, I got into my school band and thank you so much. And even as a teenager, I was like, wow, I was able to help somebody else. I
Yeah.
was able to help this kid go from what he wanted to do to achieving what he wanted to do. And I didn't really do anything other than show him how to do it. Here's the door, kid. Now turn the handle and go through it. And to
Yeah.
me, teaching and helping people achieve their goals, whatever they may be musically, is so incredibly important to me. Very important to me. So that was an aha moment.
Yeah.
The other aha moment, I think, and okay, now we'll go to extreme opposite end. This just happened a couple years ago when you're talking about, man, I can't believe I get to do this for a living. There's a place in Indiana called the Lincoln Amphitheater, and it's called the Lincoln Amphitheater because it's where Abraham Lincoln spent his youth, part of his youth, and his formative years, if you will.
Okay.
And they built this huge. Matter of fact, if you go to my Facebook page, I think the background picture right now is I'm playing my drum solo on that stage, and you see the crowd. It's a big ego shot, if you will.
I love it.
Yeah, and so and we play big crowds like that a lot, but there was something about this theater. It's an outdoor amphitheater. It is so well built and so well maintained, and the staff there is second to none. And having a good sound crew and having a good lighting crew around you is so important to the success of a performance. And you're witnessing, when you see a show, you see a concert, you see the guys that are on stage, you're witnessing the end result of a ton of hard work. And I'm not just talking about the practice time it went into play.
Right.
I'm talking about the guy that's climbing the rope ladder to focus a light on the singer. I mean, it's a lot of work to get these
Such a great analogy to so many things.
Oh, there's so many things. Again, back to a company. I mean,
right.
You got the CEO of the company, right? But if it's not, there's also a guy that sweeps the floors.
Yeah, if you got a big meeting in the conference room and the janitor and the cleaning crew didn't do their job the night before, the meeting's toast.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. People don't want to come into some dirty, round table meeting and there's napkins all over the place. Exactly. So everybody's involved. So anyway, we're sitting on stage and I'm playing, and everything was just in slow motion. And the band was playing great, and we were cooking, man. And there's 4,000 people and lights and they're screaming. It was just a great moment. And the best part about it was the lady that did the catering backstage. She made these homemade chocolate chip cookies. They were the best damn cookies you've ever had.
That just set your mood on fire.
Totally, right? I was like, I want to get the show done because I want another one of those cookies.
Another cookie waiting for me, right?
And the opening band better not have eaten all of them, man.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, they were
stashing them in there, hiding them so you know where they are when you get back.
Exactly. So, yeah, things like that, those are the little things that make that big moment like so special. They make it so special, and so that was an aha moment. And then I think the other aha moment for me has been with my podcast, the Drummer's Education Connection. That started during COVID. My friend Chip Ritter called me up one day. It was like 2 or 3 days into COVID, and as before we moved in here, I was out on a hike in Fullerton. I was like, well, I'm going to go outside and go for a hike, get some fresh air. Don't have anything else to do. So it was before, everybody had switched over, and everybody's trying to brainstorm and keep their lives together. Yeah. And so Chip calls me and he goes, man, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know, dude, because he's a drum teacher like me. And I go, most everybody's switching over online and this and that. And he goes, yeah, well, I really want to do something, but I don't know what it is. And so because of that, he knew another guy, Rick Stojak, down in San Diego, and Rick knew this guy up in the Bay Area, Jeremy Steinkohler. Thus, the Drummer's Education Connection podcast was born, and we're coming up on 200 episodes.
Wow!
And we went to 3 weeks ago now. We went to PASIC. PASIC is the Percussive Arts Society International Convention, and I realized that through our podcast, a lot of people knew who the podcast was. A lot of people knew who I was from the Sam Morrison Band and my teaching and stuff, but a lot of people knew who the podcast was. And it was an aha moment because I realized that things like this,
Yeah.
Sitting in front of a camera in a room, people listen and people learn and people take away things that help them in their lives because you're willing to sit there and do it. And that was an aha moment. And
Yeah.
it's so much more than being about, again, like you said, look at me. It's not about that at
Right.
all. It's about, helping the community, helping the drumming community. In this case, hopefully something I say resonates with somebody and helps them in their business,
Yeah.
life.
Well, we all want to make an impact. I mean, I was coming out of a
Yeah.
event a couple of years ago with Lorianne. We were walking out of it was a corporate event in my business world. And we're walking out of the hotel, and there's a couple of people there talking, and one of them says, "I think that's him." And they come up, and it's like, and this isn't an ego moment as much as it's just they approached me and said, "You're the guy that has that podcast." Like, yeah, we love it. And then they started talking about some of the episodes they've heard. And it makes me feel good. It makes me feel, hey, you know what? Yeah, it's easy to go to ego right away. But as soon as
Oh
I
yeah.
did that, I came right out of it and thought, man, it's so cool to know that something we are creating. And I've got a team too. I'm sitting here by myself, but there's a team of people that have helped put this together and everything we're doing with it,
Yeah.
that the impact that we're making. And that's got to be such a great feeling when you come off stage or you're back at the hotel and somebody walks up and, hey, I really enjoyed the concert tonight, but when you did this or you did that, and just knowing that, something you did, the guy hanging the light, like you just talked about, the impact
Yeah.
that the people behind the scenes, it's easy to see Michael Jackson and the impact he makes, but what you don't see is the thousands of hours and thousands of people that led up to, the recording of Thriller or Billie
Right.
Jean or
Right.
Back in Black with AC/DC or any of that.
Right.
There's so much that goes into it.
I
Dude,
think that I
yeah, go
think that
ahead. So many places
I
we can
think
go, and I want to keep
oh,
going.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I think that having your game together, having your stuff in a group together helps the people around you as well. And this will be a really far reach in the analogy. And if you're not a musician, you'll be like, I thought everybody had
Well,
that.
this is a
But
good test. Well, test me here because I'm not.
okay,
So, yeah.
okay. So my drum. A lot of times you go to a concert, and if I'll switch cameras here. You'll see this. You also see the smiley face on my snare drum.
Nice.
Uh, that I draw for my students. So right here, you see there's two microphones.
For those
This is the
listening, he
microphone.
has now an aerial view looking down at the drum set. For those,
Yeah. So this is the microphone you're hearing right now. This is the microphone that goes into my recording computer.
okay,
Okay. Well, all these drums, you'll see there's not a microphone on that drum. Okay. When you're listening to that drum, in this case, you're hearing some of the overheads, but for recording purposes, there's a microphone inside that drum.
okay,
Now, my touring kit, the kit that I tour with, is the same way. Everything is internally mic'd, and all my cymbals have microphones under them, so they're not over, they're under. And I have it that way because I know what I want my drums to sound like. I'm very specific. This is what I want from my drum kit. Okay. And this is the sound that I want, and this is what I'm going for. But because I know what I want, it makes the guy out front that's mixing the sound, it makes his life a lot easier. Because if that microphone's inside the drum, a lot of people don't realize, but there's an amplifier with a guitar screaming out of it, usually sitting right there, that is also going into that microphone.
got it.
And so they fight a lot of that sort of stuff on stage. So having the mics inside the drums helps with that. The other thing that happens is instead of when they, when usually when my drum set's set up on stage or a drum set is set up on stage, sound guys attack that thing like crazy, putting mics on. They don't have to do that to my kit. They walk up, they grab the microphone cables, they plug it in,
Yeah,
they plug it in then to what's called the snake. It makes their life easier.
yeah,
Okay. Now, granted, when I first did this, it was self-serving. I want my drums to sound this way, so
right.
I'm gonna put the mics in them. But in turn, me doing that prep work and having my drums all tweaked out for them makes their job easier. Okay, how does that apply to a business? If you do your job correctly, it's going to help the other guy do their job correctly,
Yeah.
which is going to help the other guy, which is the bottom line to that business is going to be better.
No, I love that because it does. And sometimes to your point, we're doing it our way to be a little self-serving to make my job easier. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if everybody in the organization, I use sports analogy a lot,
Yeah.
if the wide receiver is doing his job and the right tackle is doing his job and the center is doing his job, yeah, the reward for them is a bigger contract and a longer career, but the reward for the team is, I know, or if I'm Magic Johnson, I saw a Magic Johnson video just yesterday, highlights of, you could watch Magic highlights all day.
Yeah.
He's dribbling down the court and he's looking left and he throws the ball to the right. He knows James Worthy's over there because they've practiced it so many times. They've performed
Yep.
so many times. He
Yep.
didn't have to look because he just knows that's where James is going to be. And so
Yep.
I'm sure it's a very similar situation with the band. You just know where your lead singer is going to be at all times. When you're drumming and you look, boom, he's right there. He knows that you're going to bring them in on 4 or whatever the case may be. Dude, I'm learning a lot. I feel like I got a music education just in this last hour.
One
Talk a
of
little
my
bit about your
favorite,
writing. I want to hear a little bit about your writing. Promote what you've written, what you're
sure.
writing now. We're at the hour, which we can go longer, but
Yeah.
I want to be cognizant and aware of your schedule as well.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
Back up a little bit.
caveat off of what you said, then I'll go
Yeah.
into my writing if you
Yeah.
want. So one of my favorite drummers is Max Weinberg, and talk about serving the band. Max Weinberg is the drummer for this little band you may have heard of. Do you know who Max Weinberg is?
I know the name, but I don't know where you're going.
He plays with this little band. This guy, what's that guy's name? Bruce
Oh,
Springsteen,
Springsteen.
I
There
think
you
is his
go.
name. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, he plays for Bruce Springsteen,
Cool.
and his big thing is, and he's been with him since before Bruce Springsteen was Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. Part of the E
And
Street Band, huh? Way back.
yeah, right. And his whole thing is, I watch Bruce all the time. Bruce is the boss. That's why they call him that.
Mhm.
He goes out on stage. They don't know what he's going to do. He has a little monitor right here on his bass drum, where he can watch Bruce if he's clear on the other side of the stage, because Bruce might just go wham and end the song, and you got to watch him. And so again, two things: the singer's the boss. The drummer's driving the bus. If he doesn't stop, the band doesn't stop.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So,
You keep going. He's like done this with his hand
yeah,
and you're still going. The band's like, dude, didn't you see him
yeah,
say the song's over?
yeah. I saw a little interview with him the other day. He goes, you got to be really, and again, back to the business thing, you got to be really aware of what's going on around you. And sometimes it's the small fluctuations in things that make the biggest impact, right? And so he said that he watches Bruce and he goes, he always has these little tells. And he goes, I like it when he just wears a t-shirt, because he'll do this little thing where he moves his shoulder. You can't really see my shoulder because it's a black shirt and a black background.
Like background,
But
yeah.
he moves his shoulder and I know he's going to bring his arm up and I'll give him a rim shot and end the song, whatever, But I think I guess the point there that I'm trying to make is pay attention to the things going on around you. And yeah, and you'll make a big impact for your business and your band and your community. My writing.
Before we go into the writing,
yeah,
so we're
yeah.
now starting where you and I talked about the other day coming out of the gym, and that is, how can we take what you're doing and what I'm doing and tie it in? You and I, after we get done recording, we need to sit down over a cup of coffee and
Yeah.
talk about how we're going to take this and make an impact, that impact word again, in different organizations with what you do, what I do, and the people that we know collectively. I think there's a real audience for, and people are fascinated by music for sure.
I completely agree. So I'm going to start with the book that I'm now currently writing, rather than the ones I've read. I'm writing a new book right now, and the working title for it is Drum Up Your Business.
Ooh, I love it.
The word drum is going to be an acronym, and well, I'll save that for later, but
cool.
It's going to be about how to drum up your business. And it's more how to start a drumming business, because I know, again, what I'm doing here is a business. I don't just play the drums. It is my business.
Yeah.
It is how I earn my money. Again, I've already stated all the ways that I do it, but it is a business and I treat it as such. So that's the book that I'm working on right now, and I actually have two working books right now that I've always got a billion things going on,
Hmm.
and um, the other one is just a music business book of what to expect when you get in the music business. Part of my business, if anybody's interested, if you want to take lessons with me, hit me up. Part of my business also is a life coaching thing, because what I found is in the music business, there are so many things that I've taught over the years where their big thing, I just want to get in a band and play. Okay, great. So they get in a band and they go to their first gig, and I'm like, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So watch out, do this, this, and this. And they come in and they're like, oh my God, how did you know? Well, I've been there.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, man.
Yeah. Exactly.
And,
Right. Yep.
right. So I know these things, and I know what to do and what not to do. And so because of that, I don't know, people open up to me, and it's kind of turned into this life coaching thing where I coach other people who may not be a drummer, or I give lessons to people who aren't drummers, like, because a big part of what I do is rhythm. The first person that comes to mind right now is Jennifer, this girl that I teach in Texas. She's a guitar player,
Hmm.
but she wants to learn about rhythm. She's having a hard time with her right hand. Your right hand's your drummer when you play guitar. And so
Nice.
we're clapping rhythms out of my snare drum book. So
Love it.
so yeah, so those are that's the two books I'm working on. I don't have a working title for the second one I was talking about. My latest book is my first literary book, and here I'm going to get fancy, and
Cool.
it's I'm not going to get that fancy. I'm just going to switch.
Go an aerial view again. I love it.
So this is my latest book,
Yeah, the rhythmic journey.
And a minute ago I had dropped the name Dom Fimulero. He wrote the foreword to the book.
Cool.
And this is my first literary book. There's Dom right there. He was
Nice.
considered the global ambassador to drumming. And the other three forewords that were written for the book are my friend Greg Bissonette, who plays for Ringo Starr, all-star band. He played for David Lee Roth for years. Mitch Marine from Dwight Yoakam's band, and then my good friend Chris Brady, who is the artist relations guy for Aquarian Drumheads. I've been with Aquarian for years and years and years. Anyway, this is my first, wrong camera, my first literary book. And there's my fuzzy bunny slippers.
Then we're looking at your slippers on your bass drum. I like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the foot pedal.
Glad I had shoes on.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're not barefoot. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, yeah. So the rhythmic journey, and it's the book is about rhythm and how it impacts our lives. Rhythm and music are there at every point of our life, right? Yeah. Everything. I mean, you get in your car, music's playing on the radio. Yep. You walk into the grocery store, you got music coming out of the speakers while you're buying your ice cream and your cookies. And you go, somebody has a baby, you have a celebration, they have music playing.
Music playing in the hospital in that way. Yep.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Somebody passes away, you mourn your loved ones to music. So from the cradle to the grave, it is literally there all the time. Rhythm is around us all the time. Go outside, listen to the birds. Drive past the fence, right? Roll down the window in your car. There's a fence. Drive past the fence and speed up and listen to the rhythm, speed up. It's there all the time. It's very, very, very important. So that's what this book is about. And shameless plug, if you want to buy a hard copy of it, bartrobley.com. Go there.
I'll put that in the show notes right away, and we'll blast it out with all of our posts. We'll put that bartrobley.com in there as well.
And I will send you a book. And if you want a digital download version, go to hudsonmusic.com. Hudson Music is one of the largest companies that does drum related stuff. Hudson Music, like the Hudson River, because they're on the bank of the Hudson River, and put in my name on their website, and my book will come up, and you can download it there and have it there in seconds.
Awesome. And I live 100 yards down the street from you, so I'm gonna physically get mine personally hand delivered and autographed today. So right on, I know where to find you. So
my other books, these ones were all chewed up. I should have got some new ones. These are the ones I teach out of. So this one right here was my first book. I'll go to the sky camera again. And I don't just teach out of my books. I'm a big proponent. If somebody out there is wanting to learn to play drums, there's a million different books to work out of, and I do work out of a lot of books. So, but this is my first one, The School of Hard Rocks. And then my second book is Rock and Pop and Snare Drum.
Hmm.
Glad I practiced out of that one because you asked me to play some marching stuff today.
I like it. Very cool. Very cool.
And so those are my books. And then I did for this book, School of Hard Rocks, I did a DVD back when DVDs were viable. That's how long I've been doing this.
Yeah.
And
At least you didn't say 8-track.
Yeah, right. I don't think you know what? That's one. I've done albums, I've done cassettes, I've done CDs, everything streams now. I don't think I ever recorded anything that went to 8-track.
All right, good. Nice to know you and I are about the same age. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, I did a DVD. I've done a couple of DVDs, one for my publisher called ASAP Drumming. It was how to set up and tune a drum set. And then I did a DVD that goes along with my book, School of Hard Rocks. And I won a Telly Award for that in 2009, I think, 2010, something like that. Won a bronze Telly, so I'm really proud of that. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takes me to the last couple of questions for the sake
Yeah.
of time. I mean, I got pages of notes here that we could still go into, and I guess there'll be a part 2 here, which I'm looking forward to as well.
Cool.
When you look back, we live in a 55 and over community. You and I are
Yep.
both over 55, so you're, I wouldn't say you're at the end of your career by any stretch, but certainly you're closer to the end of your career than you are to the beginning of your career, just like I am. When you look back in the 30 years or so you've been doing this professionally or longer, I think your first professional gig, you were 12, you told me the other day. But when you look at the real profession of this and your career overall, if you had to hang your hat today and say, today is my last day, looking back, what would you be most proud of that you've accomplished or that you've learned or impact you've made? And just what first comes to mind?
Helping people play the instrument and having a voice within it. So, Louis Belson, God rest his soul, we lost him a number of years ago, but Louis, he was so into what he did. And, here's a man that was married to Pearl Bailey and played with Duke Ellington and one of the giants who in the game. He was the guy that invented double bass drumming. And he gave a lesson the day before he passed away, and he taught. He passed away in his 80s, and he was so into what he did that he would. And again, this man recorded many hit records, played on television and movie, and he'd been there, done that. He did it all. So I guess that answers your question. I don't think I'll ever retire. I don't think, what am I going to stop playing the drums? Come on. But he would literally lay behind his students on his stomach. And he was a big proponent. Here, I'll go back to this camera. So there's different ways to play the bass drum, right? And I really am. I'm wearing my slippers, so you'll see
it. Yep.
You'll see my slippers. So there is a proponent of people who play what's called heel up, right? So, and then there's people that play heel down. Louis was a heel down kind of guy, and he really believed in that. That was his thing. And he would lay on the floor behind a student, and he'd hold their heels on the floor while they practiced. And I mean, God, talk about humility. Here's one of the biggest names in the business, right? You ask any drummer, who Buddy Rich, Louis Belson, and Gene Krupa were. If they don't know the answer to at least one of those three drummers, they're not a drummer.
Yeah.
They're just not, right? And so Louis, and that's how he taught, and he was just a kind man, and oh my God, could he play. So and I bring him up because he was a big, he was a guy that I thought his playing was just so superb and so spectacular. And his impact on the business was so great. When we first moved into this house a few years ago, when we moved out of the old house, I found I've written for many drum magazines and music magazines and stuff. And I found these, forgot I'd done this. I wrote for this magazine called Music Scene International. It was an old, you know, thing you'd find in a club when you walked in. What's going on, right? I wrote for them
Yeah.
for many years. Or not many years, but I wrote for them for a while. And I'm like, oh my God, this is archaic. I can't believe it. But the fact that I've had a voice in an industry and with a group of people, that group of people being drummers, and and I've had a, I want to think I've had an impact on it.
Hmm.
But I've at least had a voice and people have listened to it. So to me, that's the most important thing. I mean, playing in a band and being on the road, doing the shows, and that's all great.
Yeah.
And I love every second of it. There isn't one
Yeah.
part of it that I don't love. But having an impact and being able to help people has been a big one for me.
Must be
And that's why
exciting.
I think that's why the life coaching thing kind of
Yeah.
took off too, because it's not just about drumming. It's like, okay, well, I don't play a musical instrument, but I see that you've had success doing this. How can I have success in my life because of what you've done in the music business?
Yeah. I love That's awesome. I remember just a little bit of time I spent on the road in baseball and just going from town to town and knowing that we were showing up to be part of the entertainment that night or for 3 straight nights in a stadium. And, we were showing up where everybody's going to boo us because we're playing the home team,
Right.
but knowing that we're there to be providing entertainment. And I was the GM. I wasn't going on the field and doing anything, but knowing that I played a role in, these 30 guys getting off the bus, walking into the hotel, going to the ballpark, entertaining, getting on the bus and going to the next city and doing that. That was pretty cool. The bus
Oh,
rides,
right.
and most guys, when you talk to former athletes, what do you miss the most? It's
Mm-hmm.
not the ball game. It's that time on the bus, the time on the plane, the time in the locker room, that time with your mates, the guys that are there with the same goal you have. So sounds like there's a lot of that
Anybody,
too.
anybody that has aspirations to be a touring musician or on it, and sports and music go like this. I use sports analogies in my lessons all the
Athletes want to
time.
be musicians, musicians want to be athletes. I saw that happen
Right,
all the time when I
exactly.
was in
And
sports.
actors too.
And actors.
Actors want to be musicians, and
Everybody wants to
musicians
do
want
what
to
the
be
other
actors.
two guys do.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And I will say this, that and we talked about this. See, we talk about it with the band a lot, but we really talked about it the other day when we were at PASIC, because it was myself and three other drummers, right? We got an Airbnb and went to PASIC. And I have a ton of road experience. I'm on the road all the time. These guys that on my podcast, they've got road experience, but not. Rick has the most,
Hmm.
and Chip has quite a bit. Jeremy has quite a bit, but I'm out there all the time. And you got to have chops. You got to have road chops, because you got to know what it means to live good with the other people.
Yeah,
You got to play nice with the other kids in the sandbox.
exactly.
And sometimes um, that's more important. I mean, there comes a point where, yeah, you can do your job. If your job is the drummer, or your job is, the ball guy at a baseball, whatever it is,
Right.
it's taken for granted that you can do your job. But, are you a jerk? You know,
Yeah.
nobody want,
Yeah.
Tim Messina, who is a saxophone player and the MD for the Brian Setzer Orchestra.
Hmm.
He's from New York, and he went out on tour with us a couple of times and filled in when our sax player couldn't make it. And Brian Setzer Orchestra is a big band. I mean, I think there's like 20 people on stage. It's a big group. And Tim's from New York, so he talks like this. And he goes, but as soon as I got that gig, I don't care how well you played. If you were a dick, excuse my language, if you
Right.
were a dick, you're out of there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
it's
it's true,
chemistry.
man. You don't
Yeah.
want to live on a tour bus with a jerk. You
No, there
just
has to be that
don't, man.
unity.
Oh, man, I've got horror stories of that. I've got so many stories of that. Like, yeah, it's you don't be that guy. Don't be
Yeah.
that girl.
Yeah. No, I didn't. People have asked me when I was in my GM role how often I would sign or release players, and signing a lot, but releasing was mostly our manager would do it. But
Yeah.
every now and then there'd be that guy that I couldn't wait to go release because he was just not a good chemistry fit. And
Yeah.
dude, you might be hitting 300, but you know what? We're putting up with you. We're not benefiting from you. So I'd rather have a guy hit 250 who's a great guy to be around than a guy who's 300 that people can't
Totally.
wait to get away from. So
I'll put up with somebody, you know, playing a little out of time, not being the fastest this or the greatest that, or you know, can you play well? Can you do your job? Are you going to be a decent person when we check into the hotel? You know, I mean, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
don't and then also, I mean, you kind of that old saying, if you tolerate anything, you stand for nothing.
right.
There is a point where, you know, because when I say those things, I kind of I look at myself real quick and go, well, I've been a jerk. You know, I mean, we've all been a
No, we all
jerk, right?
have. Yeah.
But there's that point where you just go, you know, there's a point where it's like, dude, I've been driving for 26 hours. Can I please get the key to my hotel room?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's all I want. I just want to go to my hotel and take a
Get some
shower.
rest. Yeah.
You know, and you know, you can, but you know, if you have those moments and they're few and far between, then okay. But if everywhere you go there's an explosion happening around you, who
Yeah.
wants to play with that guy?
Nobody wants to be around that guy.
Right,
Well,
right.
Bart, this has been one of my favorite hour and a half almost, just this
Yeah,
time with you and hearing you play. I've got all these notes and I probably didn't even touch the notes much because what I really hoped was that, and I literally said a prayer right before we got on recording
oh,
and just,
thank you.
God, help us take this where it's supposed to go. And I feel like it did. I feel like we've had a great conversation there. Hopefully there's, an opportunity for us to do this again and dive
Yeah,
deeper into, I want to hear more about your background and when did you know you could do this for a living and talk about that 7-year-old kid and things that we've talked about in passing and a lot of planning things I want to do with you, like we talked about before, of
yeah,
getting into our community and hearing the stories of some of the other men and women that we live in this little 450 home gated community in Ontario, California, and the stories of people that even just down the street from you and me across the street. So many great things. And we'll share this also on our little group me within the
yeah.
community too. I want everybody to get to know Bart better. Talk. Yeah.
I think that the big thing that I would tell most everybody, the one thing, especially in the last 6 years of my life, I've gone through some big changes in my life. In the last 6 years, almost 6 years now, I've always tried to, like, especially in certain parts of my life, I had gratitude, but in other parts of my life, I didn't,
Hmm.
you know? And
Yeah.
now I try to have, you know, gratitude is the grease. I mean, that's what keeps everything moving, you know? And I'm so grateful to be here.
Hmm.
I'm just so grateful to be right here,
Yep.
right now, talking to you. I'm so grateful to live in this amazing community, you know. Um, and I'm so thankful to be able to do something that I love, and people will pay me to do it, and they ask me for my opinion, and I think that if I can help anybody in any way, shape, and form, I'm the easiest guy in the world to find. If you want drum
Yeah.
lessons, if you want some life coaching, if whatever, you know, send up a smoke signal, send me an email, whatever. I'm here. I'm super easy to find, and being part of this podcast has been a real honor and a real pleasure because uh, most everything I do when it comes to podcasting, I'm in the nuts and the bolts of, yeah, this little 6-inch wooden tambourine, and we have this good conversation over the geek out stuff. But this was a more in-depth conversation, and I hope that it has helped somebody who has no interest in playing music whatsoever, but I could help them with their daily life or their business or whatever. I hope that I
Well,
was
and that's
able
what I
to do
hoped
that.
coming in too. And I think we've accomplished that because we've talked about like from cradle to grave with music. Music is part of all of our lives. I mean, the first thing you hear on your first birthday is the song Happy Birthday. Music, boom.
Mhm.
You got the wedding march, you've got the everything ties to music. I can tie music to, I sit in my office and I have, so many different genres of music that I'll listen to just while I'm working. I'll put my speaker on, I'll put my phone on Pandora or my own playlists, and it could be Pacific Symphony, it could be rock and roll, it could be country, it could be, you know, it just music either sets my mood or my mood sets the music I'm listening
Oh
to. I
yeah.
think everybody's that way.
Hey, listen, next time you're in your truck and you got a
Yeah,
little bit of open road in front of you,
yeah.
we've talked about it 4 times today. Put on Back in Black and tell me you don't push that accelerator to the
Right? You
floor.
speed up.
That's what you do, man. That's what music does to you.
And
Hey, real quick. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
why do we turn our music down when we're coming off a freeway off ramp?
I don't know.
I do it
I
all
don't
the
know.
time.
I don't know. It's
Like,
a
what do
good
I need
question.
to, suddenly I need to listen? Like I didn't need to when I was going 70, but now that I'm coming up to the light, maybe I don't know what it is, but
What's that? That reminds me of that. What was it? Ghostbusters, or yeah, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd walk into that room, and he goes, "Shh, be quiet. Do you smell something?"
yeah, yeah, right, exactly. I love that. I love
Right?
that.
Hey, oh man, I lost my train of thought. Oh, you said Pacific Symphony.
Yeah.
You're interviewing somebody from Pacific Symphony?
Yeah, well, I'm getting to know the CEO, John Forsythe, real well, and
Oh, okay.
considering an ask to be on their board or to be involved in one way or another, and certainly want to do it. But yeah, it's definitely ramped up my interest in symphony music because of getting to know John, and Lorianne and I went to a symphony performance recently with John and his wife, and so yeah, it's on my radar right now, certainly more
Well,
than it was before.
if you get in there, let me know, and if you do talk to him, remember the name Robert Slack.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned it
Bob
to me the other
Slack.
day. So
He was the he's the principal percussionist for Pacific Amphitheater or Pacific Symphony, and he is he was one of my drum teachers, and he was on our podcast on Drummers Education Connection. So
nice. So if
great
people
guy.
want to hear the Drummers Education Connection or buy your books or talk to you about lessons, bartrobley.com, email
Yep.
address would be what's another good way to get you?
The other good way to get me is my email is Bart Drum, right? One drum, Bart
Mhm.
Drum at Yahoo,
Okay.
or RoboDrum20, ROBO Drum20 at Yahoo. Those are my 2 email addresses that I use all the time.
Cool.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those things.
Okay.
You can put my name into Google, whatever,
Yeah.
and
We'll
it
find
all
you.
pops up. You'll
Okay.
find me, and if you
Awesome.
want, if you're interested in my book, you can order that through bartrobley.com. If you want the digital version, you can buy that on hudsonmusic.com, and Hudson Music has everything. And my rhythmic journey, if you want the hard copy, it's in a lot of stores. It's on Hal Leonard, so you can get it pretty much anywhere they sell music books. So.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the bio on this as we post it on our social. We put it up on YouTube, all the audio networks. Everybody will know how to reach you. If you're not certain when you're listening or watching this, you can reach out to me. My information's in the podcast notes as well. Bart, it's been an honor getting this time with you. We've got to know each other the last 3 years in our community, seeing each other, every day when I drive by and wave. You truly are one of the nicest, kindest, coolest people I know. And so I'm
Oh
excited to,
gosh. Well,
for our
thank you.
friendship and to continue the friendship with our spouses and our community. I asked one last question. So I want to do two things.
Okay.
Okay. Get those sticks in your hand.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to just ask you the question I ask all of my guests. And then after you answer the question, play us out.
You got it.
Well, however you want to go. So Bart Robley, what's in your heart?
What's in my heart? Gratitude, really. I had, I think we all have challenges in life, and we all have things that we face in life that are adversarial and that are hard. And I went through a few years that were really hard, and moving into this community was the beginning of a lot of healing. And I I'm very, very grateful. I had always been grateful to be a working musician. And I was always grateful for being in the band that I'm in. And now I'm still grateful for those things, but there's so many you kind of get to a point in your life, or you hit the wall, or you hit rock bottom, or whatever you want to call it, and you start looking around, and it's like, wow, there's a lot more to this journey than me, right? There's a whole bunch of other stuff around here that is way more important than me and my drum set. And I'm really grateful to be here. I'm really grateful for really, I'm so grateful for my wife, Leah. She has been one of the most important things to my success that there is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for our beautiful home.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes without saying, I think. I've got a lot of gratitude in my heart. As far as my career, I'm grateful for the students I teach. I'm grateful for my podcast, the band that I'm in. I'm really grateful for that now, because I always was, but we're finally at a place with the group where it's everybody is on the same page and there's not explosions going on, which, I mean, God, in the music business, my God, you can't imagine, you have no idea. And so I'm really grateful for that. So I'm just a lot of gratitude and a lot of thankfulness, and yeah. So
it shows in your personality. It shows in your smile, your genuine smile. I hope anybody that listened to this podcast today will get a chance to go to the YouTube and watch it, because not all of my podcasts are visual. This one is. It's more audio than anything because of the drums, and obviously, but and most people will listen as opposed to sitting and watching. But I encourage you to sit down and watch this episode with Bart. Just seeing his setup and the aerial views and just his smile, and just it's been really awesome. So I appreciate it. Gratitude would have been that word that I would have thought of that you would have probably said. So, and your wife Leah, yeah. If there's a knock on our door on a Sunday afternoon, it's probably Leah coming over to drop off some flowers or show us her new animal, or she's just a joy.
Around here,
She's here too. She brings so much joy.
My wife rescues everything.
Yeah.
And I said this the other day. She rescued me 30 some years ago.
There you go.
We have, oh my God, there's always an animal coming around here that she rescues and she finds a home for. Or, Bart, I need your help transporting this animal from here to there. Or it's always something, and it comes from such a place that is so deep inside of her, for the love of animals, that you can't believe it. And it's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, it's probably already been picked up, but I put a turtle on the table outside a minute ago, because we have our other neighbor, Dan, is going to transport this turtle to a rescue over here
nice
today. That Leah is somebody call, hey, we got this turtle. Leah's like, I'll get it. And she rescued the turtle. She's awesome. She's amazing at it.
So Bart and Dan live on what I call the cool corner in our community. Down the street, they live kind of the angled corner houses, and we have drummer Bart and surfer Dan, two of the coolest guys you're ever going to know. So
Surfer Dan.
Yeah, come visit us in Ontario, and I'll introduce you to surfer Dan and drummer Bart. All right. Well, dude, thank you so much. And now, as we wrap up today, just give us some signature Bart Robley on the drums, and we'll.
How about a little bit of Aerosmith today?
All right, you got it. You just I'll record until you're done. Here, walk this way.
We'll walk this way for you.
That's exactly what I was hearing right there. That's cool. I love it. All right, man. God bless you. Thank you for your time. For those that listen and watch today, thank you so much for making the From the Hart podcast part of your day. It means everything to us to be able to bring these intriguing and wonderful people into your car speakers or your headphones or however you listen and watch. It's an honor for me, Ed Hart, to host the From the Hart podcast. This is episode number 107, far from the DEC that Bart's done with hundreds, but we'll get there. To get to 200, you got to do 107. So
hey, 107 is my lucky number.
There you go. Mine too. Thanks, Bart.
See you, buddy.